So today being the last day, we'll explain a little bit about how to do meditation. There is a line which says, just like putting clean water in a clean pot, clean water in a clean pot. So that clean pot is like morality. If you have a clean pot, then in that clean water means one-pointed meditation, concentration. Right? From that arises wisdom. Just as if you have a clean pot, which is morality, then clean water, which is one-pointed concentration, then because of that, the reflection of moon or anything can appear in that clean water, in that clean pot. That means the wisdom which sees everything like a reflection can arise. This is a very, very clear teaching, clear statement. So meaning that if you want to achieve success in meditation, first of all you need good morality. Morality is really like the ground on which everything, moving, unmoving, can stand. This is so because the Sanskrit word for morality is shil. The three trainings, as we call it, morality, concentration and wisdom. In Hindi we call it shila, parja, shila, samadhi, parja. So morality is called shil. The literal meaning of this word shil means, shil, the word Hindi word shil comes from shitalta. Shitalta means coolness. If you observe your morality properly, I have to explain this meaning of morality a little bit. Morality basically three things. One, refraining from harming others. Two, collecting, in other words, not engaging in negative deeds, that's morality. Second, engaging in positive deeds, that's morality. Third, helping other sentient beings, that's morality. So in Buddhism, when we talk about morality, it has no connotation of observing a discipline which is imposed upon you and which you have to follow unwillingly. There's no such connotation. We need to observe morality for our own well-being, for our own goodness. So that means, number one, do not engage in negative deeds, engage in positive deeds. And the purpose is to help all other sentient beings. If you are doing any of these three things, you are observing morality. Okay? Now, if you are leading a life where you observe these three types of morality, then you are free from any regret. You are doing your job properly, Nothing to hide, nothing to feel sorry, nothing to regret. When you have nothing to regret, nothing to hide, no need to observe any duplicity in your life, then it means your mind is cool. That's the meaning. When your mind is cool, you can concentrate. When your mind is hot, with anger, things like that, of course you can't concentrate. As simple as that. Just go mjawala tangbo, same di, jam ding ding, kusimbo. Rawa Shiva. Tranquility of the mind is important. Calmness of the mind. Very, very important. For your long life, for your happiness, calmness of mind is the key factor. Extremely important. then you can concentrate. And when you are able to concentrate, then that will also help you analyze and investigate. Even when you investigate, you are basically concentrating. Normally, these two, one-pointed meditation and analytical meditation, seems a little bit different. But from a wider perspective, even the analytical meditation is concentrating on a particular field. In a particular field you are analyzing. You are not trying to analyze everything on the earth. So concentration is there also. So they actually go together, help each other, one-pointed meditation and concentration. One-pointed meditation and analytical meditation. Concentration is in a way limiting. If you make yourself focus on one object, it's limiting. That kind of limitation of your mind is necessary in our daily life also. You can't focus on everything, right? So that's why parents, they constantly tell their children to focus. Why you're getting distracted, focus on your study, focus where you are going, things like that. So that doesn't solve every problem. In a way, it is also limiting your mind, right? So therefore, you need a bigger mind, which is called awareness, which to some extent is covered by analytical meditation, but even otherwise in the Dzogchen practice there is a meditation of, where you just don't chase the object. You are just a spectator, everything is happening. You are just like watching a gripping movie, You watch the movie and make sure you don't chase the object. There's a beautiful girl, okay, don't chase her. There's a beautiful car, okay, don't chase. It is just going. So that means we get tired. We are not able to do anything because we chase object. And when we talk about object, how many different tribes and varieties are there? Countless. Right? So therefore, purpose of meditation is not to chase the object, but make a selection of all these objects, on what particular object you should concentrate, analyze, right? So let us, talk about some of this formal meditation, because some people might be expecting a formal meditation. When you do the formal meditation, this is done by what we call as the 7 or 8 Vairochana postures. 7 or 8 Vairochana postures. The 7 and 8 when we talk about 8 postures, 8 Vairochana postures, that includes the breathing. If you don't include breathing, then it's just 7. Okay? The 7 are Kangba Lakba Kebasum, Soju Chenam Dombi Hi. Kangba Lakba Kebasum. Now when you do that meditation, sitting meditation, the first thing is your legs. Your legs should sit in a cross-legged posture as you are more or less sitting, cross-legged posture. Okay? Kangba. Kangba, Lakba. Lakba, your hand, the right hand should be placed on the left hand, and then let your thumbs touch each other. This will give you a kind of triangular shape, and put it here so that the tip of this thumb falls straight towards your navel. Now do that. Don't look at me, just do that. If you have knee problem, don't worry, don't force yourself. Okay, otherwise you do it. So when you do it like this, it will immediately make your spine straight. And then when you do it, it should not be like this. It should not be like this. Like this. Ventilation. Yeah, otherwise there will be sweating, especially these days. So there is ventilation. When you do meditation for a long time, you don't don't become sweaty or things like that. Do like this. So that will strengthen your Kangpa, Lakpa, Kepa. The waist should be straight. Kangpa, Lakpa, Kepa, Sum, 3. Suchu Chen of Dombeshu. Then your teeth, your lips, and your tongue. You should keep them in a normal position. And especially with your tongue, gently touch your tongue to the upper palate. Gently, don't force it. Gently touch your tongue to the upper palate so that when you do a little bit longer meditation, salivas don't fall from your mouth. Or this will also help you not to get thirsty. So these 3 are counted as one. Suju chenam dombi shi. Gomik takpa ugdan shi. Then your head. Your head should not be on the right side, bending towards the right side. If your head is bending towards the right side, it is said to generate hatred. If it falls on the left side, left shoulder, it may produce attachment. If the head goes too much backward, arrogance. Arrogant people go like this, right? And also not too forward, because if you put your head too forward, you will fall asleep. I saw it in only one text, this explanation. I didn't see this explanation in many texts. I saw it in only one text. It's interesting, how attachment is related to the left and the hatred or anger is related to the right. And then ignorance forward, arrogance backward, things like that. Go. Then your eyes. Eyes should not be wide open trying to see things. Of course, that will become big distraction. And some people say close your eye, which looks good to achieve temporary success, because when you open your eye, you see objects, then your mind also runs towards that object. Now, if that is your reason, then close everything. Close ear also, because you will hear sound, you see. So, the desirable process is don't completely close your eye. Close it a little bit and let it fall towards the tip of your nose so that you are able to see the two side of the nose lobes or something. But you may have to make an effort to see it, but just let it naturally fall towards the tip of the nose. But still you are seeing something, right? So the important thing is, even when you are seeing something with your eye sense, make sure your mind does not chase that. That's the purpose. If you completely close your eye, temporarily, as I said, you might feel that you are able to concentrate. But remember, you need to concentrate everywhere you go. You can't go everywhere with closed eyes, right? But the mental concentration, as much as possible, must be there wherever you go. So you engage in such a practice that even when your senses are open, your mind does not chase the sensual objects. That is the point. Okay? Then the two shoulders should not be lopsided, should be of equal position. Gomik Thakpa, 2 shoulders. So this makes it 7. Then in addition to that, if you add breathing, then that makes it 8 Vairocana postures. Now for the time being, let us do this exercise. For a few seconds you should see something, whatever you want to see something. Then after that, without seeing that object, get a mental image of that object and let your mind focus on it. Okay, we'll do this exercise. So we start now. You got it clear? First see any object, Buddha image or anything. Then let your mind just remember that and don't allow anything else to come in your mind. So let us start. Okay. How was it? Was it clear? Was it very clear?
It's difficult when the eyes are half closed. When it's full closed, they become little easy to focus.
Yeah. So she says when you close your eye it's easier, but when you open your mind, eye difficult. So we need to do the difficult things, the tough ones. Because as I said, wherever you go, you need to concentrate. So when you do such meditation, you will see two obstructions. One is called mental sinking. When you try to focus on one object and stay on that object, our meditation was very short, but if you do a little bit longer meditation, then gradually you will lose the object and your mind will sink into darkness. Then you will fall into sleep. And even before you fall into sleep, you are more or less half asleep. It's very comfortable, It's very relaxing. Then you may be thinking, yes, I am doing meditation. It's so relaxing. And this is exactly what is happening in many busy countries. When in the day people go to their business, job or work, and then at the end of the work, they go to a Dharma center nearby and do the meditation, half sleep. Then they say, wow, the meditation is so relaxing. My dear friend, you are not meditating. You are sleeping, so it's relaxing. But that's not meditation. So do not let your mind sink and become dull. If that is happening, you need to recognize it. Okay, now my mind is becoming dull. My mind is sinking. Notice that, and then if needed, just get up. If you're feeling sleepy, just get up. Take a cup of coffee or go for 5 minutes walk, whatever. And I do this repeatedly in my office, When mind is a little bit dull, I get up. Just getting up is big change, big difference. Do that. Okay, so do something that will cheer up your mind. I found I have this precious human life. I have this wonderful opportunity to practice Dharma. Think about something that will make your mind cheerful. Upraise the spirit of the mind. And then sit. Now the another obstruction is when you try to focus on the object, instead of your mind becoming dull, your mind might become very excited. That's why we call the mind monkey mind. The monkey mind gets very excited, and then you already lose the object of focus, and instead you are thinking about the picnic that you had last week. So you are actually sitting here, but your mind is singing and dancing and playing football and volleyball and kicking and singing. You are getting, this is called excitement, agitation. Get excited. So when this happens, again you need to recognize that and tell the mind, don't get too excited. There's no reason that you get too excited. You are still in the samsara. You still have suffering. So do something that has a sobering effect on your mind. Right? So through this way, you should try to avoid both these obstructions, sinking and excitement, and make sure that your mind stays on the object. Two things needed: clarity and stability. Clarity means the object should be clear to your mind. Stability means the mind should be staying firm, stable on the object. All right? Now for the beginners, in the beginning when you do the meditation, do short session, 3, 4, 5 minutes session. Short session, good quality session, then stop it. Don't force yourself. If you force yourself, your mind will rebel and become reluctant. Short and many more sessions. Okay? And then, as I said the other day also, prepare that place where you are going to sit, inviting and nice, so that you feel like going there. If you force yourself, then your mind will rebel and will be reluctant to continue the meditation. And in some cases, it is said that next when you visit your meditation room, you feel like vomiting. Well, I have to sit there again, Not like that. It should be really like interesting, make it interesting. Okay? So it's a question of getting habituated. Gradually when you get habituated, you will really enjoy it, like it. Because the real calmness and peace is found within, not outside. Even if you go to a really nice, 5-star hotel, not many people there, swimming pool, parks, so nice, relaxing. But that is very, very temporary. Because when you go inside, the mind and space are more or less same. There is no restriction, there is no limitation. It's almost like the sky, sky has no limit. So then you go in, then you really feel free. If you want freedom, go inside. That's the teaching. Go inside. If you want happiness, go inside. Freedom, go inside. We are always shouting, and asking other people to give us freedom. You might get your freedom, the so-called, independence of a country, but in that so-called independent country, how many people are there who are deprived of their freedom? So freedom is something that you have to take. Nobody can give it to you. Enlightenment is something that you have to take. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can give it to you as a gift. So you have to discover it. So therefore, Buddhist practice means learning to live with oneself. Learning to live in harmony with oneself. Learning to live happily with oneself. You see? That's so important. When you're happy with yourself, when you're able to discover or understand all these inner capacities, resources, you are already a very rich person. In Buddhism, richness is not counted in terms of how much bank balance you have, how much property you have, It's really inner richness. This inner richness, once you cultivate, wherever you go, people will respect you. You will be able to take care of yourself. No thieves can steal it, no robbers can rob it. It will never become excess baggage. The ordinary belongings, even when you travel before you die, at the airport they'll say, "Madam, sorry, excess baggage." Right? So this is really, going inside is really the key factor. Making friendship with oneself, loving oneself, self-compassion as they call it nowadays. Very important, self-compassion. If you don't know how to express love to yourself, self-compassion to yourself, how can you express compassion and love to others? So this one has no connotation of being selfish. Taking care of yourself is not selfish if you do it properly. Selfishness means when you think just about yourself, only about yourself and not about others. That is selfish. Right? So you need to think about others, think about yourself also. Right? So that's very important. Now you need to do it, you see, regularly. Not you, all of us have to do it regularly because we know the technique now. Then one easiest way is watching your breath. Watching your breath. We can do this again. We'll let us say count 5. Count 5 means when you breathe out, breathe in, we count this as 1. Then breathing out, breathing in 2, breathing out, breathing in 3, breathing out, breathing in 4, breathing out, breathing in 5. So let us try to concentrate on our breath. When I talk about watching your breath, I'm talking about the breath that you normally do. Right? Just notice it. Just notice it. Make sure that your mind is almost something in between the two nostrils and watching the breath. Go together with the breath. Go out, come in, go out, come in. Don't go all the way, never come in. That means death. Go out, go out, come in, go out. Watch this without being distracted. Watch this without being distracted. Okay, let us start. Okay? Were you able to do it without being distracted? Normally what they do is, when you watch the breath going out, coming in, then suddenly there's a disruption, then you have to start all over again. So it will take a long time to achieve success in just watching this breath for five counts. It's not easy. So this shows how distracted we are. Once a Western nun came to see me and she said, "Geshe, before I meditated, I was a nice person. After I meditated, I became a bad person." That's not true. But we feel like that because before you meditated, you have no idea what is coming in your mind, what is going out of your mind. You have no idea. You take it for granted. Whoever wants to come, come. Whoever wants to go, go. There's no gatekeeper, nothing. Doors, windows, everything is open. Thieves come, take away your property. Robbers come, take away your good virtues, things like that. You have no idea. Now when you concentrate, then you know at least who is coming, who is going. Then the first thing that you notice is all these bad things or distractions are coming, And your mind is not able to stay on the object that you want to stay. Instead, many other things. This is exactly what the sixth Dalai Lama said in his romantic poem, where he said, Gomballa me shere yila khurjumendu, magum zeme shere yila vale vale. So there he said, the face of my teacher which I meditate never comes in my mind. But the face of my girlfriend which I don't meditate comes all the time. So this shows in what area our mind is habituated, you see. So this also clearly shows if your mind gets habituated with something, it comes very clearly to your mind. And in the text it said that when your mind is fully trained, then your mind, the mental consciousness will be able to see the object as if you are seeing an object with your eye. And unbelievable. So you are able to, through mental visualization, you are able to see His Holiness very clearly. You are able to see Buddha very clearly. So many things you can see. So that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama repeatedly, tells about the visit of certain cities on bodhisattvas and Buddhas, because his mind is pure, you see. Now, even for us, this is a great encouragement, even for us. And a clear indication that normally we are not doing any meditation is that even if you meditate for one day, say on the Buddha's image properly, it is very likely that you will see Buddha tonight in your sleep, in your dream. This is a very good sign that things can happen if you get habituated. But the drawback is, this also shows that we are hardly doing any practice. We want instant enlightenment, That's why His Holiness repeatedly says that Buddha had encountered so many hardships to achieve that state of enlightenment. We talk about countless aeons practice. And His Holiness said, sometimes it looks like we are more clever, more intelligent than the Buddha. Buddha took countless aeons to achieve that state of enlightenment. If we want to achieve enlightenment in an instant, right? So therefore, if your mind really, what I'm trying to say is, we are not talking about something which is impossible or unachievable, things like that. We are talking about something that is achievable, which will change your life, which will transform your life. For example, specialize a little bit about patience, specialize a little bit about compassion, then try to get habituated with and practice it, Just that one practice. Forget about so many good practices. That's why the Buddha says, if you have one practice in the palm of your hand, you have all the practices in the palm of your hand. What is that practice? Great compassion. Imagine, that also shows that we are not good in anything. So if you practice one quality like great compassion means, how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. If you're not just saying it, sincerely wishing it, sincerely practicing it, then how can you harm others? If you are somebody who is wishing all sentient beings without suffering, how can you harm others? How can you cheat others? How can you exploit others? How can you kill others? How can you rob others? All these other negative deeds will cease by itself. Right? So therefore these teachings are very encouraging. The only thing is we need to spend a little bit time, make constant, practice, get habituated. You can do it. And once you are able to do it, the amount of satisfaction and happiness that you get within yourself cannot be matched by any belonging, any property, any amount of money. That's the thing. And this is what we need in today's world, where people are becoming more and more mechanistic, and more people run after, external material things. As a result, more and more people are suffering from depression, competition, things like that, then this development of these qualities are not luxury. These are not choice, These are necessary, without which we cannot survive to some extent. Right? Okay. So this is a little bit about meditation. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's about this breathing meditation. Whenever I try to practice, I feel it's a bit difficult because the breathing becomes heavy. I try to focus more on that and it becomes more difficult. So how to overcome this thing?
Now with the breathing meditation also, it depends on your physical state. If you are suffering from, say, asthma, having breathing problem, then you will get that problem. Okay.
It's always I feel.
So don't force it. But if you are physically well, then I think no problem. In the beginning you might face some problem because you are not used with that, and gradually you will be able to do that. Okay? Yeah. And then a little bit of exercise, walking and exercise. That is also helping make your lungs strong. If your lungs are not strong, you can't breathe properly. The breathing, when we do the breathing meditation, it has to be done all the way from the diaphragm up. You can measure it. But instead of that, if you do it from here, see, most of us breathe from here. Because the purpose is to breathe and fill all your lungs and also feed the cells in the lungs. That's how you energize yourself. So most of us suffer because we don't know how to breathe properly. You see. And also when we sleep, we don't know how to sleep properly. Normally it is encouraged to sleep on the right side. This is what is explained in the text, but I personally found this is true. Sometimes it's relaxing if you sit like this, which I very often do also. But for breathing, sleeping on the right side is really very, very good. Not on the left side, because if you sleep on the left side, you are putting pressure on your heart, you see. Then you get all kind of strange dreams. Sometimes you can get sleep quickly if you sleep on the left side, but that's not very comfortable. Okay, just one thing. Now let us talk about a little bit about mindfulness. Otherwise you will think Geshe said meditation and mindfulness. What happened to mindfulness? Mindfulness, three things. In all your practice, you need three things. Three things, you remember this. One is mindfulness. Mindfulness means not forgetting that virtuous practice. Any virtuous practice that you are doing, remember that, not forget it, and don't get distracted. So it is the job of mindfulness not to let you distracted and not to let you forget that object of practice. That must be there. Second, conscientiousness. That means when the mindfulness, with the practice of mindfulness, when you remember the object, then you need a supporting, friend, conscientiousness, who will check whether the mindfulness is continuously staying on the object or getting distracted. Then on top of that, you need a third thing which is called bhagyoga. Not many people talk about, in today's world, people talk about everywhere, talk about mindfulness. Not many people are talking about the second and third, which are equally important. Third is bhagyoga, which is something like heedfulness. That means never allow yourself controlled by negative emotions, and make constant effort in practicing the virtuous qualities, and guard your mind from those afflictive emotions. carefulness. These three, all these three are extremely, extremely important. If you have time, read that chapter on this in Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life. Very detailed explanation. And Shantideva actually in one verse he says, those who want to practice, please maintain mindfulness and conscientiousness. I'm requesting you with my folded hand, he says, things in that way. Very, very important. Okay. Now mindfulness. There is a verse in Nagarjuna's letter to the friend where he says, human beings are not at all well. They are impermanent, selfless, and impure. Meaning, yangda nyu de midishing meta dangme mezang rigbarji. However, those people who don't maintain mindfulness, they don't observe these facts of human life. That it has this suffering nature, impermanent nature, selfless nature, impure nature. We don't observe this reality. We see this, instead of being able to see the reality, we see it in the opposite way. Human beings are not at all well, which means human beings have suffering. But normally do we think I'm suffering? Unless you physically get particular illness, sickness, normally I'm well. Even a mad person, will say I'm well because his mind is not functioning. So something like that, we also say I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay in a worldly conventional sense, but in a little bit deeper sense, you are not okay. Because you are controlled by these negative emotions, you see. So we don't see that suffering, because if you really see the suffering, especially this third suffering of change. Now when we talk about there are so many different types of suffering, but basically three types of suffering. One is called suffering of suffering, which is the obvious suffering, headache, stomach ache, things like that you get. Even animals know that. That's called suffering, obvious suffering. The second suffering, which is called suffering of change, which we normally don't see it as suffering, but we see it as happiness. For example, I did not force you to come and attend my talk. You come by your own will, and the talk is not very long, an hour and a half. So you might feel okay. But if I keep you more here by saying, oh, Dharma is very important, we don't know when we will get the time, then I keep on talking, 4 to 5:30, 5:30 to 6:30, 6:30 to 7:30, 7:30 to 8:30. I don't have to go very far. If I continue to teach until 8:30, I am 100% sure all are gone. Maybe one or two, maybe. Some people are very stubborn, So but most of us will be gone, you see. So that means your initial feeling of happiness because your mind was ready for an hour and a half. So it's okay. Physically also not very long. So there's happiness. Now when I, hold you here more than needed, then you'll start suffering. That the so-called happiness now changes into suffering. Similarly, during lunch, when you're hungry, we're really dying, I want to eat really something, then you have this chapatis and dal and things like that. The first few, pieces of bread are really delicious. The lentil is really delicious, things like that. Okay, delicious. Keep on eating, How many breads you can eat? If you force yourself, you start vomiting. As we say, law of marginal utility, as we say in economics, Right? So that means there's not genuine happiness. It's just reduction of suffering by which you thought this is happiness. When you are carrying heavy load for a long time and suddenly, take it off, you feel a little bit, happy. something like that. So that also. Now from this, what we should understand is, what we should understand is, to whatever person you associate, to whichever place you go, things will change. Because you thought, if I go with this person, I will be happy forever. No, it will change. If I move to this country, I will be happy. No. So understand this. And then the third suffering, which is even more difficult. Why we are having all these different types of suffering, like the two sufferings that I mentioned, is there something basically wrong, which is called conditioned suffering, pervasive conditioned suffering. That means your very physical, psychophysical existence is conditioned by the force of contaminated actions and negative emotions. This psychophysical aggregate itself being the product of contaminated actions and negative emotions, the cause itself is so destructive, you cannot expect good fruit from those causes, contaminated actions and afflictive emotions. So therefore, with this you need to understand, so long as I have this conditioned psychophysical aggregate, I cannot have genuine happiness. So therefore you wish to come out of samsara and achieve nirvana, complete elimination of sufferings and their seeds and even imprints gradually. So that is what we are trying to do in the Buddhist practice. Okay. Now this is when I say that, this is no connotation of you being bad or anything. I am not saying that, you see. We are simply talking about the reality. Because of this reality, we are not saying it's hopeless. We are not saying that you are a bad person, things like that. There is no such connotation. In fact, if you read Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way of Life, right in the beginning he says, even though you have obtained this impure, contaminated physical body, but if you make effort in your spiritual practice and change your attitude, you can become a Bodhisattva. You can become even a Buddha. Everybody has that Buddha potential, you see. So in that way, right? So therefore, what is said here is that you need to understand the way things are, the reality. Suffering, it's there. Now suffering means aging is suffering, birth is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering. That we all know, except birth. Birth we think is happiness. We celebrate it by saying happy birthday. But it was only Buddha who said birth is suffering. Okay? Birth is suffering because you can see the child that comes out of the womb, he doesn't come out laughing and smiling, clapping hands. He came crying. He came out crying. That means he has a problem, he is suffering, you see. I mean, I'm not saying don't celebrate happy birthday, that is a different thing, but we need to understand that the reality is like that. And then the interesting thing is, when the child came out crying, what else that child can do, because the crying is the only language available for him. Doesn't speak Chinese, forget about it, Korean or Japanese or things like that, only crying. And by crying, what do you think the child is asking?
Help.
The child is asking for help, yes, but to be more precise, the child is asking for somebody's
love and care.
not only love but unconditional love. It's important, not only love but unconditional love, because the child has nothing to give back at that time. And it is by giving this unconditional love from the mother or whoever is the caretaker that the child is able to survive, you see. So therefore, love is so important, compassion is so important. It's important right in the beginning, then in between we forget. When you are a little bit, when you are adult and you are able to jump and do so many things yourself, then you forget these things. And then suddenly there is a reminder, when you become old, again the most important thing you need is somebody's affection and love, not so much about money or property, things like that, you see. Right? So therefore, compassion and love, these are not luxurious items. They are necessities. They are necessities. As somebody said, love is a quality that blind can see, deaf can hear. Even the blind people can feel that love. Even the deaf people can that love. And love minimizes fault. When you genuinely have love to somebody or whoever, when you have this genuine love, you don't keep on maximizing the fault of other people. You will not keep on complaining and saying, this is done by her, this is done by him, They are part of yourself. You don't talk about their faults, you talk about their qualities. You think about how to help minimize their fault. Love minimizes fault. Contrarily, if you highlight the faults, you will not be able to see the good qualities of other people. Right? So therefore what we are saying is be realistic and accept your reality and see it, that we are not well, something must be done. I have suffering, something must be done. What kind of suffering? All these different types of suffering. Can I reduce it? Yes, of course, why not? Because it is primarily related to your way of thinking. Your way of thinking. Much of the suffering that we are experiencing is your mental projection, dependent upon your mental outlook. You see? In the same place, with the same people, some people will not enjoy, others will enjoy. We are not talking about enlightened or unenlightened. Among the same ordinary people, because of difference in attitude and outlook. You see? So your mind is very, very important. Very, very important to transform that mind. So realize that suffering and think about how to remove that suffering. And then impermanent. Gross impermanent, subtle impermanent. With the click of every second, every minute, we are changing. Nobody is staying the same. You are a different person than what you were yesterday. Aryadeva in his 400 verses says that there's nobody who understands themselves. Because the so-called person is actually one moment. With every moment, the person is changing, becoming a different person. This is what Chandakriti, a very famous disciple of Nagarjuna, he says in his 400 verses. And the scientists are now saying the same thing. They are saying that your cells and your neurons, everything that you have is changing all the time. So much so, they say that after 7 years, you are a completely different person. After 7 years, you are a completely different person. So that change is there, impermanent. And why do we need to understand impermanent? If it is changing, let it change. Why do we need to understand this? Unless you are able to adapt to the change, you will not be able to survive. Whether it's external change, internal change, you need to understand that and adapt to it. And especially when we talk about change in the sense of death, if you understand this imminence of death, the death is definite, time of death is indefinite. At the time of the death, the only thing that is useful is your spiritual practice and nothing else. You can't take your money, anything. Nobody has done that. Even your body, you can't take it. I jokingly sometimes tell people that at the time of the death, there is a very tight security check. More tight than the check that we do at the airport, you see. Take out, at the airport, maximum they'll say, take out your shoes, madam, turn this side, that side, that's all. But at the time of the death, they say, oh, you might be hiding something in your body, leave your body behind. Right? So even this body which we have when we came into this world, when we die, you can't take that with you. So that death can come anytime. So why we need to know about this? We need to know about this not to frighten ourselves. Many people think, oh, death is, uh, death is inauspicious word. Don't talk about death. Why you are talking about death? Ordinarily many people, they are scared of talking about death. In Buddhism, we talk so much about death. Once a journalist asked a question in Bhutan. In Bhutan they have this happiness project, you see. So why Bhutanese people are so happy? The answer was almost like paradoxical. He said, because we always talk about death. We always talk about death and suffering, so we are so happy. So that means really being realistic. So for example, now if you know that we are all going to die, from there you can make it sense that while I am alive, what is the best to do? If you are going to live forever, then of course you can come up with so many projects and you can have so many buildings and cars. But if you are not going to live permanently, then you have to think, what is it that makes more sense? So all this will be there. So impermanence, selfless. That means selfless means this person, this I, does not have inherent independent existence. It's a mere designation on the conglomeration of the body and the mind. It's a mere designation, you see. It's a mere designation. Imagine if your name is Joy, you were not Joy right on the first day when you were born. You become Joy later on when the name was given. So it means it is very much dependent on the name. And again, we are not saying you are just a name. What we are saying is you are very much dependent. When we say your only name, means that you don't have inherent independent existence. And what is the use of talking about this? The use of talking about this is normally to our, misconception. We are unable to see the reality. We tend to see everything as having inherent independent existence. My enemy has independent existence. He will be there forever. He is going to continue to harm me forever. He will never change. This, my beloved friend, also has inherent existence. He is going to be there forever. So this is my really never changing, inherently existing friend. So I must love this person, Thereby you develop obsessive attachment. And this one, my enemy, never changing, horrible, negative enemy, he will be my enemy forever. So you develop excessive hatred and anger. But if you, in a calm fashion, if you think, nothing is static like that. They are all designated, you see, designated. Today's friend might be tomorrow's enemy. Tomorrow's enemy might be next day's friend. Things change so quickly. Right? So therefore, this kind of thinking that things don't have inherent existence will help you reduce your grasping, clinging, obsession with objects. And then the third is impurity. Look at our body, Khareda. Look at the bones, the flesh, the marrows. Just analyze from the top of your head down to the sole of your feet. In the true sense of the term, there's nothing that is completely pure, even if you have washed it and rubbed it with the best, soap. Even if you drench yourself in a bathtub for 3-4 days, it will not become completely pure. You see, the nature is such. 36 so-called not clean substances made of 36 unclean substances, things like that. So that by that what I'm saying is, again as I said, I'm not saying you are filthy or you're dirty in the conventional sense, but from a more deeper realistic sense, if you look at the nature of the body itself, there is nothing much to develop so much obsession. That's what I'm saying. If you just look at the body itself, you see, and this is not just Buddhist is saying. If you go the scientific way, I mean, they say that if you pay like, I don't know, like $100,000 or something, you can buy the stuff from the market and make this body. All the substances are there in the market to buy. But it's not easy to make a human being because probably they don't have the technique to put a consciousness in there, you see. Right? There is a beautiful book, Body, called Body by Bryson, beautiful book. So he does all this analysis. But as I said, whatever be the nature of our body, the fantastic thing that we have this is human mind, which has the capacity, if we train it properly, which has the capacity to see the reality as it is and then cultivate all these necessary positive qualities, compassion, wisdom and so forth, and you can be completely free and get liberated. Even if things like nirvana and enlightenment are beyond our understanding right now, but at least you can see that things are changing. If you make a progress, if you make an attempt, you can change, you can become better. Next month you will become slightly better. That's possible. So that is good news. That's good news. Because at the end of the day, it is the mind, which does this work, good and bad. All right? Next one. And then it says, the desirable thing is that you should see this reality of human being, suffering, impermanence, selflessness, impurity, and so forth. But those people who don't maintain mindfulness, who don't maintain this mindfulness, they see it the opposite way. What is impermanent is permanent. What is suffering is happiness. What is selfless as having self. What is impure is pure. That is misconception. And because of this wrong conception, because of this misconception, that lead to destruction. Because of obsession, you develop attachment, anger, jealousy, and so forth. All these fightings, conflicts that is happening in the world today are because of misconception of the reality. The reality is that we are all connected, you see. What's happening in Russia and Ukraine makes a big impact to the rest of the world, including faraway America, you see. What's happening in Taiwan and China making impact everywhere, you see. But we don't think about this. We are so egoistic, my way is the right way. Others are stupid. Others are, evil forces. They must be killed. They must be destroyed. So, we need to educate people properly about all these realities. And these days I have been repeatedly telling people that please understand the law of nature, how it functions. Law of nature functions exactly in the same way in America, in China, in Tibet, everywhere it functions the same way. The sun shines in the same way. The wind blows in the same way. I mean, they may be slightly different, but basically the same way. This natural forces doesn't make any discrimination. So understand that. There is a prayer by Nagarjuna in his text called Precious Ratnavali, Precious Garland, where he prays, may I become like the 4 or 5 elements, which does not make any discrimination, and become a source of sustenance for all these suffering beings. And I was struck, not only by reading this Buddhist text, I was struck by reading article after articles written by the topmost brilliant scholars in different countries from the West. And I made a comparative study of all this. I mean, they are basically coming to the same point. Okay? Stop here. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question from yesterday
Hmm.
about the relationship with the teacher.
Hmm.
And you made all the way from the teacher, the teaching, ultimate meaning of the teaching, and personal awareness. And which signs I can notice I'm capturing the teaching in the Christian awareness level?
Hmm.
Which signs
Hmm.
I can notice
Hmm.
that I'm capturing the teachings in the Christian awareness level?
Pristine awareness, difficult to say. Because, as I said the other day, that instead of using the senses, we should try to make our mental consciousness. Within mental consciousness, there are gross, subtle, very subtle. So, pristine awareness comes into this very subtle consciousness. So, that will take a little bit more time. But as you exercise your brain or your mind and do your practice regularly, then about the teaching, about the subject matter, as I said, listening, contemplation, meditation, especially when you do more meditation, then you will be able to get a very clear sense of what the teacher taught in your mind. And sometimes you are able to even recall that in your dream. So that means it is really impacting your mind. Right? So to do that, it's important not to get this meaning one time, but to review it again and again, so that it really stays in your mind, the meaning. And then practice it, so that it becomes a habit in your life. Right? So in the beginning, as I said the other day, you do it with effort, and then gradually it will come effortlessly. Like water. When I say water, it's very clear to you. So your meditation or your familiarity with water is very good. But when I talk about compassion, it's not so clear to your mind like the water. So through repeated exposure, study, meditation, you need to make that practice clear to your mind like water. Okay? Any? Yeah. Yeah.
Could you expand on the four mindfulnesses?
For mindfulness of the body, when we talk about the mindfulness of the body, then think about the nature of the body. As I briefly mentioned, from the top of the crown down to the sole of the feet. And you can also, like these days, you can see through some of the scientific documentation, that you can see everything in out. You see what stuff, by what stuffs the body is made of. Look at all the internal organs, intestine, heart, lung, everything, you see it. So what essence is there to get so obsessed with it? And then in Thailand, there is a practice where the monks have cemeteries in their monastery compound. Dead body of 1 day, dead body of 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. So rotten, black, white, red, with pus, then dry, then completely without flesh, just bones. Now in some of the science museums also, you can see the same person with certain technique. You can see them changing. Beautiful lady, then gradually changing, becoming very old lady. We can see all these things. So this is the reality. So think about that reality. Then mindfulness of the feeling. We have feeling of happiness, feeling of suffering. neutral feeling, and it is based on these feelings that we develop grasping. If it's a feeling of happiness, we want it more. If it's a feeling of suffering, you don't want it. If it's a feeling, neutral feeling, you just ignore it. Things like that. Right? So understand that also, the fluctuation of the feeling. How when there's a feeling of happiness, you develop attachment. There's a feeling of suffering, how you develop anger and hatred, things like that. And then, sarva, then mind. Now when we talk about body, there are internal body, external body and so forth. And finally you see your body as impure, made of impure substances. Or in other words, the body is made of 4 or 5 elements. And then, as I said, the rotten body, the corpse, and then meditate on impermanence of the body. The purpose is not to develop attachment. Now with the mind, the third, mindfulness of the mind, means the mind can be of 3 poisons: anger, attachment, ignorance. Or it can be a mind which is free from these 3 poisons. It can be a mind which is completely peaceful. It can be a mind which is completely distracted. Dhamma beyond worldly mind, mind in meditative equipoise, mind which is not in meditative equipoise, mind which is liberated, a mind which is not liberated. And then all these different states of mind, none of this mind has inherent independent existence. In the final analysis, none of this mind has inherent independent existence. So mindfulness basically means wisdom, analytical wisdom that analyzes the true nature of the body, the feeling, the mind, and so forth. And then with this meditation on the phenomena, it talks about phenomena in general, and especially your hatred, your sleep, your excitement and sinking and doubt and obscuration and things like that. Okay? We have no time, but otherwise, this meditation on 4 mindfulness, gradually, the purpose of meditation on 4 mindfulness is to gradually understand the Four Noble Truth. By meditating on the mindfulness of body, that it is made of unclean substances, you enter into the understanding of suffering of truth, Dunge Demba. Then with the understanding of feeling, you develop the understanding of the second noble truth, the origin of suffering. Like that. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
Regarding that line that our physical actions are rooted in our thoughts, in the books there are 4 lines. So first 3 lines I understood, the last line I didn't. Habits come from repeated actions, actions rise from our mind comes from our imprints. And the last line, which I didn't understand, that imprints in turn are left by our mind. What does it mean by that?
Imprints also left by mind. Imprints basically means habit.
Yes.
Habits are formed by the mind. Okay, if you want to achieve liberation, nirvana, then you need to remove suffering and this seed of suffering. Then you get liberated. Still there may be imprint. Unless you remove that imprint, you will not get completely enlightened. That imprint also must be removed. It is said that even arhats, who had completely destroyed the enemy of negative emotions and achieved liberation, because of certain habits, sometimes they also will, jump around like monkey. It's past life's habit, you see. So even those habits must be removed. Dualistic appearances, we say, to achieve that complete enlightenment. Okay? Yeah?
I studied the Satipatthana Sutta for a while, and I got a doubt it's better to meditate one kind of mindfulness per practice, or I can go through all them in the same practice.
What?
Or for all four kinds of mindfulness in the same practice.
No.
Or
Sequentially. Because on the same object you can't meditate at the same time. I mean, 4 different objects you can't do at the same time. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned in one class that about Vinaya Pitaka, it's about the discipline which a monk and should follow.
Yeah.
I was reading a book that also mentioned while describing Buddha's life, that is from the Vinaya leaf number. So is that like both are true, or like while they are describing, and another book they are describing that in Vinaya, Modgallana and Sariputra discussing about Buddha's life.
Yeah. So?
So I don't understand, like because I don't have the access of Vinaya Pitaka.
Yeah.
Like, is it about the discipline on the monks and nuns, or is it about Buddha's life, or both?
Both are possible.
You know.
No, both are possible, because you can talk about Buddha's life, you can talk about Vinaya,
So in Vinaya Pitaka, what actually?
In Vinaya Pitaka also you can talk about Buddha's life. There's no contradiction. There's no contradiction.
So it contains Buddha's life and also about the discipline.
Because in a sense, all the 3 Pitakas are Vinaya Pitaka, in a sense. Okay, because all these 3 Pitakas are for training and disciplining the mind, in that sense. But differentiation is made because the Vinaya is more for monastics in that way. Otherwise, they all teach discipline. In that sense, they are all Vinaya. There is no teaching of the Buddha which does not help disciplining the mind.
Kagayu, is it the same term for Tibetan term for Vinaya?
Which one?
Kagayu.
I don't know. There's name of a place. That's not important. Leave it. Any other questions? Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak a little more about the difference or the relationship between the one-pointed meditation and the analytical meditation.
Yeah.
Because I think in my experience with meditation, I've learned more about sort of one-pointed focus. And I'm wondering, is analytical meditation practiced in the same way? Are they sort of part of the same thing, or are they? Should we think of them as?
They are supplementary or complementary. They help each other. For example, here in Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, he says, when we talk about meditation on faith, meditation on compassion, we are talking about not having faith there, compassion there, just like a statue, and then meditating on it. No. There are two. One is when we say meditating on a statue, then you have a statue there, at least the focal point. Then when you actually do the meditation, you don't look at that statue. You get a mental image of that statue and meditate on it. Right? Now, especially when you talk about meditating on faith and compassion, you don't place faith and compassion out there and meditate on it. It's just making your mind transformed into faith and compassion. Okay, so that is general description of uh, uh, meditation. So therefore, when we talk about meditation on faith or for immeasurable qualities or bodhicitta or impermanence and suffering, there the meditation has to be done through the analytical process. Because unless, for example, when you talk about developing faith to the teacher, you need to analyze who the teacher is, what is his quality, what is his level of compassion. So many things you have to analyze. Then once you find that the teacher is really reliable in terms of his compassion, in terms of his knowledge and learnedness, then you develop faith. You cannot just have the teacher there and this is my teacher and one focus meditation. No. I mean, this may be useful if you are doing just one-pointed meditation, but for cultivation of faith, you need to do analytical meditation. Similarly, impermanence, similarly, bodhicitta, and so forth. Okay? So, therefore, these two are helping each other. His Holiness explained this very beautifully by saying that concentration is almost like, conclusion. You do the analytical meditation on impermanence. You put all the reasonings, and then finally, when you're sure, okay, this is the meaning of impermanence, then you stay there. Stay on the. It's like mathematical, sum total. You focus on that. Okay, so they help each other. In the beginning, when your mind is getting very distracted, forget analysis. You are not able to concentrate on anything. You need to make effort to concentrate. The purpose of concentration is so that your mind becomes serviceable, becomes obedient. You need an obedient mind. If you have an obedient, if you are able to control the mind, make it serviceable, make it obedient, then you can say, oh mind, meditate on compassion. The mind will say, yes sir. Mind, don't analyze, just sit on one object. Yes sir, the mind will say. You practice it in such a way so that when you are well trained in your handling the mind, then when you ask the mind to stay, it will stay there like a mountain, not moving. If you release it and say go, meditate on compassion, faith, things like that, say yes sir. And especially it's, I think, a very unique thing in the Maya and the teaching probably, but Tsongkhapa in this Lamrim Chemo really very clearly says, those people who say meditation means just one point in meditation, it's like, if I have many grains here in this pot, and if I just pick up one grain and say this is all the grain that is there in this pot, which is not true. There's so many other grains here. So to say that meditation is equal to one point in meditation, this is like taking just one grain and saying that this is the only available grain in the whole world. And not only that, analytical meditation is actually much more useful and effective in our day-to-day life practice. Because you need to, that's what we call as the critical thinking, you see. In science, in philosophy, in Buddhist teaching, critical thinking, using logic and reasoning, finding things by yourself, without simply just, listening to others. This is very key. And through that way then, and once you achieve that concentration, it will also help you, better do your research, analysis. Because there also, you may be not just focusing on one object, but in that particular field, you are again concentrating, you see. So, takes away. Any other last question? Otherwise, I'll release you to freedom. Yeah.
There's three terms. Ten, Shi, Pag Yu.
Oh.
Pag Yu
Oh.
in Tibetan, I believe I heard this has also a meaning like it's kind of a ball or something. For example, if Tsampa is made into a ball.
Wow. Oh.
Or
Yeah,
sense
yeah,
into a bowl.
yeah.
Does it have that kind of connotation?
I have no
Connotation
idea.
in mind?
I have no idea. In colloquial Tibetan language, Bhag Yoga means something that has starch. For example, a cloth that has starch, That meaning, I don't know whether we can apply it here or not. But basically, as I said, Bhagyu basically means refraining from negative emotions and delighting in virtuous practices. If you have that, then you are a careful person, heedful person. Okay? If you don't care about how many negative emotions are coming, you don't care about the development of positive emotions, then you are heedless, careless, Pagme Pagyu duzine the Pagme bane chivene. There is a from the Dhammapada there is a stanza which says, having Pagyu, having heedfulness is the source for achieving the nectar-like state, the nirvana. And without having heedfulness is the source for death. Pagme chivene. Okay. Thank you. Turjiche.